Hi there, welcome to CarlaVoyance, where I discuss all things intuitive, Akashic records, and counselling. I'm the owner of Carla's Realignments and the author of various personal development books. I'm your host, Carla Savannah. Thank you for joining me. Hi Patreon family, welcome to our most recent member, Missa. Last week I spoke about conscious pre-parenting, or rather, how to prepare ourselves for our parenting experience. Today I want to discuss basically the first 8 years of your child's life, or developmental psychology. Developmental psychology was one of my favourite fields of study. The basic principles of developmental psychology is that development is continuous, it's gradual, it's sequential, it varies from person to person. It can be predictable, and growth and development is a product of both heredity and environment. Children learn and develop their personality, ego self, fourth dimensional body, however you'd like to understand it, from birth until around the ages of 8. And of course, this can vary slightly with each child. Freudian theory, he bases his theory on a person's primitive desires. Erikson bases his theory on inner child or inner world versus the outer world conflicts. Piaget's learning theory is based on one's mental and physical abilities. Maslow is based on the hierarchy of needs, which is very, very closely linked to what I teach within my 8 Selves Therapy, and why I created it. So there are lots and lots and lots of different types of theories out there, but I'm just going to go through a couple of the more popular ones. Freud suggests, for example, that within the earliest years, a child is going through an oral phase where most things they do are based around the desire to stimulate their oral or mouth needs. So, for example, if a child isn't sufficiently fed, might go a bit hungry, or isn't allowed to use a pacifier, that child is more likely to have problems with overeating or possibly even take up smoking addictions when they become adults due to that desire to fulfill the oral phase being unfulfilled. Erikson suggests that the very first emotions a child is trying to develop is basic trust. So if they discover that their world is unsafe, they develop a sense of mistrust in the world, which will then obviously affect them in adulthood. Piaget suggests that in the early years, a child understands their world through their five basic senses and their actions. Then move towards the sense of understanding their world through language and mental images. So, according to Piaget, if a child wasn't allowed to physically express themselves within the first couple of years of their life, it's unlikely that they will feel confident enough to express themselves through verbal language and speech when they get older. Maslow's hierarchy of needs suggests that the first basic needs, such as food, water, clothing, rest, need to be sufficiently met in order for a child to feel safe, secure, and supported. And only when those basic needs are met can they actually possibly consider connecting with another human being or even society. So when a child's basic needs aren't met, a child can't possibly move towards participating or contributing with society or connecting with others. I'm sorry if I've gone a little bit too much into the whole psychology and counselling part of things. However, I feel as though knowing some of these basic milestones is a very important part of being a successful parent. Because if you know what your child is needing at each stage or phase of their life, you can give your child the best chances of succeeding in life. For example, if you know that a child doesn't begin to develop language skills until the age of around 7, why would you force your child to learn to read and verbally express themselves perfectly before that age? Unless they showed interest, of course, then absolutely, you want to keep up with how fast they are willing to develop. But if you know that a child is at an age where they are needing security, creativity, basic food, shelter, original senses, and physical development, why would you bring out a university book and force them to try and read it? It's just two extremes. And knowing what phase they're at is obviously really important. Children are learning all the time. They are like sponges watching you. Your child is more likely to swear often if you swear often. If you approach a child based on their developmental phase, you are more likely to get through to them and nurture their basic specific needs. When you try to force a child to do something they aren't physically, emotionally, and mentally ready for, you're likely to make that child think, there must be something wrong with me. I can't think of anything more heartbreaking than watching a grown man, for example, become aggressive, depressed, and frustrated simply because his basic survival needs weren't met when he was a child, and he wasn't able to build any sense of trust within his world as a child. Or imagine a woman who wasn't allowed to express herself physically and wasn't made to feel emotionally safe enough to speak up as a child. And then she becomes an adult that tolerates abuse from her partner. In both cases, you have a man and a woman who haven't yet reconciled the needs of that little boy or that little girl within them. One of the assignments that I was given while studying psychology and counselling is we were given a case study. Say, for example, we'd get something like, you have an elderly man struggling to quit smoking. He's separated and believes that no one will ever love him. Then our job is to go through each of the theories and see where this man has become stuck to develop, grow, or learn lessons of specific milestones. In some cases, we found 65-year-old men stuck in the developmental phase of a 2-year-old child. The challenge is to then try and move them from the age of 65 years old beyond the needs of a 2-year-old child. This is a great activity to try. Think about yourself, for example, and a challenge that you might be having at the moment. Say, for example, you are having a problem with losing weight, overeating, and having a lot of bodily insecurities. If you were to go over each of the theories, a person like this, for example, possibly didn't have their oral needs met as a baby, didn't feel safe, secure, and supported by their caregivers, possibly was criticized about their creative projects, or even some of their physical attributes. Then you would look up the ages associated to each of these specific problems or characteristics or things that might be happening to you. You would find the median age, and that would be the physical, emotional, and mental age that you are personally stuck at. Now, don't be hard on yourself if you find yourself being a 45-year-old woman stuck with a child inside you that is crying out for help that's only 5 years old. I work through emotional needs within my 8 Selves Therapy counselling calls. I have these calls monthly with my clients. Emotions are something that I am passionate about, simply because I really want everyone to be able to master their 4th dimensional self, which is where we carry a lot of our shadows. If you know where you are stuck, you know what you need to work on, and you have better chances of avoiding your child becoming stuck in the same place as you. I hope you've enjoyed this month's theme around parenting. I know it's a challenging one. It's a big subject because it can really hit a raw, sensitive area in our lives we sometimes don't want to look at. Being a parent forces us into doing inner child work and shadow work, whether we like it or not. Next month, I'll be getting started on the dragons, which I've already spoken a bit about on Facebook. However, I'm going to do things slightly different here on Patreon. I'll be recording the audios and giving you a lot more information from the dragons and about the dragons. And from each of the dragons, I'm also going to download some channeling and some information from each of those dragons in regards to how we can navigate next year, so 2022, a little bit better for ourselves. I hope you can tune in then. I'm Carla Savannah, and I hope you have an amazing day. Mwah.